Do they get this show in Parma? No, they see it, but they don't get it.
That's right. And that's exactly the way the Weirdness Really Bad movie is. Standing with me today is the man who not only has been the announcer for Gallardi Fest, but the announcer and, let's just say, not only the cheerleader to get the crowd roaring, the idea man for a lot of different things, but radio disc jockey from Cleveland who's done better for himself and is a piece of the immortality that is Gallardi Fest with Houlihan and Big Chuck and Big Chuck and Little John, Jim Szymanski. Jim, thanks for being here.
Okay, I was wondering who you were introducing. All that was great stuff. I didn't even realize it myself.
So, anyway, you're somebody that we always really admired simply because you were always there. You weren't trying to take the spotlight in the show. They featured you a little bit here and there in some skits. You were always there for the crowd. It seems like you were always there. Didn't you ever really work over at the radio station?
I did for 23 years at WGAR, and that's where I actually met Chuck while I was there. And the one day he just invited me to come down to the show, and I helped. I was sitting there in the audience that very first time. This would be 1978. That's when I first started, and I came to see the show. He invited me to come down there and watch, and I'm sitting there with a bunch of Boy Scouts who were in the audience that day, and they were just kind of sitting there like maybe their Scoutmaster said, well, you'll get a survival patch for coming to this, but don't you dare make any noise because it's like in church, And I'm sitting there thinking, well, this is funny stuff. These guys are cracking jokes and everything, So I start laughing and I start clapping, and the Scouts are looking at me and they say, well, maybe it's okay to laugh and clap, and they start laughing, Well, after the show, of course, then there was finally a live audience for once, and Chuck came up to me and Houlihan, it was the last year of Houlihan, and they came up to me afterwards and said, hey, is there any way you can possibly come here each week and work with our audience, and because this was the most lively audience we've ever had for the show. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to, because I lived close. Well, they were at Fox 8, they're right on Marginal Road, and I was living off 66 in St. Clair, so I was very close by, and I said, yeah, I can arrange that in my schedule to do that. I was doing the late night show at GAR, so I could work that in. So I started coming down every week, and before you know it, they started using me in skits one after another, giving me more dialogue and everything. So I did some classic skits with him over the years, the Cuyahoga Jones and the Castle of Doom, which hasn't had its last episode yet, by the way.
Really?
We were left off at the firing squad, and that was back in 1987. So we're telling Chuck, hey, it's almost 30 years since. Let's bring closure to that one, So maybe someday they'll bring closure.
Wasn't there a similar movie that kind of had a long distance between that and the last sequel with Harrison Ford? I can't think what that was called. Indiana something or other, and okay,
and whatever the donut. Yeah.
Take off of Cuyahoga Jones.
Exactly. So we did that one. We did Murder on the Dull Express, and about Dick Tracy. I mean, loads and loads of skits that I got asked to be in, and had fun doing it. And then, of course, as the years go by, I'm talking to people in the media, and they were saying, hey, how'd you ever get in that skit with Chuck and John? Or, I see you were there every week, and they had the 15 annual Jim Szymanski nights. How did you ever get? Well, it's just a matter of being in the right place, right time, and things worked that way. And had a great time doing. Had a ball doing that show the whole time. It was one of the highlights of my life, just being able to be with Chuck and John, as you said earlier.
Well, plus, let's face it, how many Jim Szymanski nights were there?
Yeah, there were 15 altogether.
That kind of makes it easy to, do you have any idea when you had to cash a check? Well, yeah, just take a look at Big Chuck and Little John show. Actually,
I had more nights than Art Lafredo or Bill Ward, or any of the other guys there. I had more. But that's because I was there every week, too. So
that's true.
I kept reminding him.
And obviously Gallardi Fest wouldn't be the same without you. The memorabilia that you brought to your little museum area is just amazing. But let me ask you one question. What was your reaction when they said, we're going to start having conventions?
Well, I thought it was a wonderful idea, and of course Ron Garstick, the producer of the Goularty Fest, knew that I was doing the audience warm-ups for the show, and he saw me there every week on the show and everything, so he came up to me and he says, you know, we're starting this Goularty, we're not sure what we'll call it or anything, Goularty Con, whatever, you know. I said, well, it's not a convention, it's just a festival, you know. So that's when they said Goularty Fest then. But he said, hey, would you mind emceeing our presentation on the stage, because we're going to have, you know, entertainers and interviews and all kind of things there, pizza eating contest. And I said, I'd be delighted to do that. So the very first one, 1997, at the Berea Fairgrounds. That was the first one in the Goat Barn. I always mention the Goat Barn, but here we are now at La Villa Banquet Conference Center with chandeliers and carpeting and everything. Little John, when we first came here, Little John says, "This isn't the Goat Barn." Not anymore. But anyway, so.
Where did you come up with all the stuff that's on your little museum tables?
Well, you know, I collected things over the years. I'm a hoarder. You know, some of us are hoarders, right? Okay, I'm the kind of guy that doesn't like to throw stuff out. And when I realized that they were going to start doing this, I said, you know what? The first two, Chuck and John put together, I don't know if you remember this, they put together a little museum. They had some of the costumes they wore, the Cuyahoga Jones costume, the Bat Guy costume, all that kind of stuff. And people really enjoyed that little memorabilia from the show and everything. And then, but they stopped doing that once they left the Berea Fairgrounds. And so I said, people want to see stuff. They want to see things that bring to mind, oh yeah. So I had all kinds of things from the show. I even recently just found this is the first year I have it, I found the front page from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, February 1997, with the headline banner, Ernie Anderson passes away, so forth, you know. And so that was, you know, and that was of course the reason it all started. He passed in February of 97, so in August 97 they had the first Goularty Fest then in his memory and honor kind of thing. But having that newspaper headline, just, you know, for folks to see and such, you know, and there's photographs from 1997 there to remind folks what it was like in the Goat Barn.
Well, Jim, we want to thank you for taking a little bit of time, because this is one of the busiest places you've ever been, I think, because without you, no one knows what's going on.
Right.
And we want to thank you again.
You're quite welcome, Mike.